Welcome back to the Justin Wenzel Podcast. You guys, on this show, we like to bring in guests that have great stories to tell, people that have been through some stuff and able to use everything they've been through to help others achieve their best life. And today we have a fantastic guest. I've been able to spend a couple days with Dr. Sean right here. Sean, dude, this has been so much fucking fun the last couple of days.
I love coming out to places like this for the hang. Like, this is cool. This is the bonus, the content, and we're going to, all that kind of stuff. But I made a post about it. I know you saw it. I don't fly out. I used to fly out to places thinking like, what can I get out of this? What can I get out of this? Now I fly out and I'm like, just being there is getting everything out of it. And I love the hang.
No expectations and
no attachment. Like, I like to parse words a little bit. So I expect to add value when I go. I expect to be inspired by the people I'm around. I'm not attached to either of those things being true. I can have a good time and I can get something valuable from it, whether what I thought was going to be the value or not is what the value is.
Do you thrive in situations like this? Like with you, me, Jay, we're getting competitive.
Yeah.
Throwing out.
For me, this was a 2-day campfire. I'm really good. I enjoy a campfire. I don't love a party. So I want to be around people in environments where I can ask a question that I would never ask in front of a big group because it's a deep, impactful question that somebody might or might not feel comfortable answering. Mm-hmm. And I want to create the space for them to be able to answer it or not answer it. And I want to be asked that kind of stuff. I want to be challenged on like, hey, you said this, but I see you doing this. How do those two things? I love it when somebody calls me on that kind of stuff.
So some intimacy, accountability,
yes,
and a little bit of competition, and a challenge.
Yeah, and I like being around greatness. You know, so I've watched you. I've watched the team that's around you. I've watched Freddie, right, do all the work that he's doing, and it's a great reminder. Like, I don't want to do that work because I don't love the kind of work that you guys do at JWX enough to consider myself someone who could compete with you in doing it. And I love that. It's validation that, like, that's not where you're supposed to go. It doesn't feel right. This is where you're going. Stay there.
It's important to know the areas that you thrive best, and really, I don't like the word. I don't like saying stay in your lane, but at the same time, find like the lane that you thrive in. A minute ago, we were kind of talking before we came on that, you know, you thrive in chaos, putting out fires. Tell me more about that.
Well, my mode of business used to be there isn't a fire, so maybe if you start one, you can put it out. Right? So things would be going well, and I'm like, I need to sabotage all of this. I didn't know that I was doing it, but it would be things are going well. I'm bored. Let's fuck it up.
Would you, real quick, with that, is that to establish some urgency? Is that to when people get too comfortable, or are you literally self-sabotaging?
No, it was literal self-sabotage by accident.
Yeah.
You know, so Hurricane Sandy comes and hits Long Beach. That was the best thing for me to learn about who I was, because it's when everything hits the fan, I'm like, I've got this. I see the panic in other people, the nervousness, the negative, like the sadness. And that doesn't hit me until like 5 years later. I'm just in the moment. I've got this. Climb on my back. We can do this together. When people got sick in 2020, I've got this. Turned my big studio space I created for seminars and education in person. I was like, well, yeah, we spend way too much money in rent and we're not going to be doing that stuff. We can complain about it, or we can turn this into the dopest live stream studio anybody's seen. Do that. You know, everything in my life has been that way. When things fall apart, I'm the guy that you want around you. And it took me a lot of time and mentorship and friends to realize that I don't need to create that to be valuable to people or to myself. I can be valuable in good times too.
Is that something you've always had, or is that something that's developed over time? Because you mentioned mentorship, and I want to get into that a little bit, but what was that your mindset earlier on?
That I was valuable all the time?
Yeah.
No.
Where did you stand before then?
Comfortable in a crazy mindset. So, for example, I'll give you some growing up examples, right? I was a small guy. I talked to you about this. I was the first guy in my family under 6 feet tall. So
Bummer.
Yeah. So my father, all the men in my family older than me were phenomenal athletes. I was average, but I could out hustle you. And I remember playing basketball one day, and Hector, who was our power forward, was about 6'3", 260, and I didn't like the way that he got in my way when I went to the basket. So I took the ball, I pegged it at his chest, and I tried to shoot a double leg on him. I'm like, you know what, like, that was like, you know what, I don't have the words, so I'm just gonna come at you. That's how we're gonna do this. That wouldn't, thankful that Hector was a kind dude, because that wouldn't have ended well for me.
He's 6'3", 260. He's a big boy.
Yeah. You want to talk big boys? Do you follow football at all?
A little bit.
You remember D'Brickashaw Ferguson, the offensive lineman for the New York Jets? I got in a scuffle with him. He was the third or fourth overall pick, offensive line. We had words, and he threw me from the free throw line to out of bounds under the hoop. I'm like, this isn't good. But like I loved that. I thrived off of that. I like getting trash talked. I like trash talking. So
let me ask you this though: was that something that you felt like you had something to prove?
Yes,
it was.
Insecurity.
It was all insecurity.
All insecurity.
But a lot. So, but for people that are insecure, you know, some insecure people shut down, isolate, and everything, and then others lash out, and others take more chances out of their insecurity. So your flavor of insecurity is by far the minority.
Well,
and as far as what I've seen.
Sure. I mean, for me, it was a combination of insecurity and delusional self-belief that I still have.
Okay.
So it was, I know that you don't think I can do this, so let me prove that I can do this, even if I don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. Do you follow me on that? Mm-hmm. So that was where the lashing out would come.
When did you calm down?
I hired a mentor. So it was 2015, maybe 2016. I was working 90-hour weeks, 80 to 90-hour weeks. It must have been 2015 because my wife was pregnant and with our first daughter. And she pulled me aside and she goes, hey, I don't want to be a single mom. And what she was describing was, I'm never home, never thinking about anything, and I'm not successful. I was making $30,000 a year.
Doing what?
I had a chiropractic practice, I ran an event company, and I had a CrossFit gym.
Do you think that was too much stuff?
Yeah. I didn't do any of them well. But remember, I said 5 years later, right? Mm-hmm. Hurricane Sandy was 2012. And so it took, like after Hurricane Sandy, I was like, okay, I'm never going to be screwed by the weather again. I'm never going to be in a situation where I'm out of business for 6 months. I'm never going to be in that spot again. So I was like, I need several different revenue streams. So if anything goes wrong, I've always got one that's going to be successful. Mm. But none of them were successful because I didn't know how to lead people. I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know how to take care of myself. So my wife told me I don't want to be a single mom. Okay, it's like a gut punch, but I've been punched in the gut before and I can stand up after that. So I started thinking about it, but I didn't really change anything. 4 years later, I was running an event and it was awesome fitness competition on iconic locations. We made decent money, but there was no working capital in the bank account. 1 year it rained. The next year we way underperformed on what we thought we were going to do. So we lost $27,000 on the event, which isn't a big deal if you're a real business, but we weren't one. Mm-hmm. My wife had saved $15,000. That was what was in our bank account. That was our life savings. We were trying to save to buy a house. And I remember I had to come home. I had to tell her I lost $13,000 of the $15,000 that you've been saving. I don't know if we're going to be able to make our bills this month. And I don't know what to do, but I guess I'll figure it out. Like, this is what it was the moment of like, this is what I'm good at, but also says who? Mm. Like, there's no evidence that you're good at this, yes. Except that you believe it. You're comfortable in it. So I signed my part of the business off and I gave it to my partner. I'm like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I'm not good at it. I don't want to be responsible for it or be thinking about it. So I signed it away. I went to the manager who was in the gym I owned and I said, look, run it. I'm just going to trust you to run it, and I hope things go well. I'll be in that room building this practice. Started to find a little bit of success, enough that we didn't miss our bills. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking about success. We're talking about like $45,000 a year instead of 30. And then I was just in so much pain. Excuse me, so much pain. Hired a mentor, and I was like, I don't know why I'm not successful. Like I know I'm great, but there's nothing that says I'm great. And he's like, well, if you want to be better at business, you got to become a better person. And I said, I treat everyone how I want to be treated. He's like, yeah, that's the problem. You're a fucking psychopath. Nobody wants to be treated like a psychopath. So I was like, all right, that makes sense. So how do I treat people? He's like, you got to treat them how they want to be treated. I said, how do I know how they want to be treated? He's like, you got to ask them.
Ask them.
I said, how do I ask them how they want to be treated? He goes, now you're asking good questions. That guy taught me how to think about being the best version of myself. That was the first year I ever cleared $100,000. And instead of working 80, 90-hour weeks, I was working 40 to 50-hour weeks and spending a lot of time thinking. That's where life kicked off.
So other than, I guess, what evidence did you have of your self-belief before meeting this mentor? I mean, based on what you're telling me, most people would feel run over.
Yeah.
You got a genetic bad deal of cards.
Well, athletically.
Or athletically.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, there was failure and self-sabotage was already like a repetition in you. So what was that? Where was that self-belief? Because, and again, I see it, but most people would say, like, how do you discover that, or how do you retain self-belief like that when you have really little evidence to show that you even should at that time?
One of my favorite quotes is Mark Bell. He says, growing up, I had the performance-enhancing drug that was parents who believed in me unconditionally. And I had that. And so my parents would let me fail, but never let me feel like a failure. So
explain that.
There's a difference between failing and being a failure. Failing is, what I've come to understand, is maybe the most important thing to finding success. Failing is taking the chance on yourself, on the dream, on the vision, and in the way you think is going to get you there, and finding out that you were wrong. But still believing in the vision, in the dream, and trying a different way to get there. Being a failure is falling down and not having the recourse to get back up. You know, non-metaphorically, being a failure is, if that business of mine failed and I was like, you know what? I don't have what it takes. Let me go get a job I hate and just do it to make a living because I'm not good enough to do this on my own. That's the difference.
So do you think that people are failures in some cases before they even start?
Yeah, but I think that they don't know. And I don't think that they want to be. I think oftentimes, you know, I feel really fortunate and blessed to have grown up in the family I grew up in, because I got to see what hard work really looks like. I got to see what a good marriage looks like. I got to see what success looks like. I got to see what mistakes look like. And my parents never hid any of that from me. Other people don't have that. And I was taught you can do anything you put your mind to, which wasn't always true. But also, in hindsight, you know, there are a lot of things I failed at that I didn't really put my mind to. I just thought I could throw my glove out on the baseball field and be a pro.
Your parents were successful?
Yes. Depends on how you define success.
I mean, happy marriage.
Yes.
Abundance.
Financial success, happy marriage, healthy. My sister and I still love each other, like each other, want to see each other. We all live in the same town because we want to be close to each other. We want to go to my parents' house every Sunday for dinner. So yeah.
Risk takers?
My father was a risk taker in the way that he will tell you his biggest regret in life is not thinking bigger. But he came from a family where the furniture got taken because his family couldn't afford the payments on it. The lights got turned off.
So he had a little bit of scarcity kind of built in.
He still does. And I love him, and I tell him all the time, I'm like, because he'll be like, I want to see your books. I want to see what we could do in your business. I'm like, I love you. And you have never had a W-2 employee. I have 23 right now. It's not the same kind of business. Like, he made more money per year, almost every year of his career, than I take right now. Because when money comes into my company, I'm like, how do we put this back into the mission and the vision? Mm-hmm. People, tech, curriculum, whatever a new facility, whatever it is, I have faith it will work out financially for me in the end. But right now, I'm not living large financially because it keep putting it back in.
Right. I feel you there. But
he's like, you should take it. You should take more. You should take more. I'm like, I'm not looking for that.
Yeah, it's kind of a juxtaposition, an interesting positioning for somebody who was programmed with a scarcity mindset, right? Mm-hmm. To give you unconditional support, right, and love, mm-hmm. but let you fail, mm-hmm. right? Bail you out or no?
Depends on what the thing was.
Okay.
So bail me out in the sense that you can come live at my house.
Yeah.
Right. So I lived at their house when things went.
So catastrophe bailout. Yeah. Too big to fail.
Yes, and it was never like. If I asked, they would have helped me in any situation, but they knew I didn't want to be saved, and they didn't want to save me.
Fair.
So that's kind of the line, I would say.
I like that.
I've learned a lot from their marriage about what I want in mine, what I don't want in mine, and I've learned a lot from my father especially about what I want in being a business owner and what I don't want in being a business owner. And the question you asked was, where did the confidence come from when I had really no record that would show why I have it? And it was because I looked at my grandparents, I looked at my parents, and I was like, those are successful people. I come from them. I am a successful person. I just haven't made it yet. So I had that.
One thing that you mentioned is that, you signed off one business, let somebody take control of the next so you could focus in on one. Mm-hmm. Do you think that being too diversified was a big part of the problem?
No.
In other words, would you suggest somebody in your spot to try to tackle three? Because my rule of thumb is always try to chase two rabbits, you lose them both.
Yeah. Well, yes. And so I thought I understood my businesses much better than I did at the time. Mm. So what I would suggest to anybody is there's a test that you can give yourself to find out if you're ready to open another business. Could you travel for a month and not take a phone call and come back to a business that's bigger than you left it? And if the answer to that question is no, you are not ready to start another business. So I did that in January and February of this year. I was gone for 7 weeks to Spain and then to France because I haven't traveled a lot and I wanted to take my family away and I wanted to see, do I have what I think I have? The company grew without me. Like people, we hired people while I wasn't there. I'm like, this is cool.
That's a business.
Yes, that's a real business. So if I wanted to, it gave me the freedom of mind to know, okay, I made a big strategic mistake about 5 years ago, which was I was growing Dr. Sean Pastuch, the brand, and I pivoted to growing Active Life, the brand, and putting Sean Pastuch on the back burner. Mm. In hindsight, me having people know who I am and know what I'm capable of and know what I've done and know why I care about them and who I can help and who I can't would have helped my company grow. But I didn't want to make it about me. And that was a mistake.
The personal brand is everything now.
Yes. So hindsight 2020, here we are. I'm going to build a personal brand now.
You're doing it.
Thank you.
You're doing a really good job.
Thank you.
I enjoy everything you post. And some things that you have said, and I want to dive into one thing that we had actually talked about before you even came out here. But yeah, the personal brand, Which is funny when you have the name doctor, right? Like you think it's resume. No one gives a fuck about your resume.
No. It's funny. The only reason I keep doctor in my name is, and I get shit for this on Instagram all the time. I'm like, I'm not asking your opinion. Right? I don't care. I keep it in my name because there are rooms where you need the credential to get a sentence in.
Yeah.
And it's not until I'm a few sentences in and people are like, who's this guy? What is he saying? That they realize I'm a chiropractor and haven't been licensed in 7 years. and then right. I'm like, it's too late. I'm already in your head. You're already thinking differently.
Right.
That's why I keep it.
100%. If you can get any sort of title like that, it's going to give you leverage in a conversation just off the title alone. And especially in your personal brand, that's huge, right? I don't have something dope like doctor to say.
Yeah, you got some dope stuff.
Well, I'll take a doctor, right? Like what do I got to do here? Is there an online course?
I'm sure there is.
If I want Dr. Justin Wenzel, but anyways, I think with the personal brand, if you have that, if you can use that, you leverage that. Absolutely. The reason that resumes don't matter in my eyes is that no one gives a fuck about what you've done.
Right.
Nowadays, we're real time, baby. We just care about what you're doing.
Yep.
And you're doing a great job of keeping it super raw and showing us what you're doing. That's why I tune in.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I know you from our correspondence, communication, DMs, things like that. And now I know you pretty well because I've gotten to spend a lot of time with you in the last couple of days. But watching you just show up is entertainment.
Thank you.
And that's a good thing, right? And I will tell you also this, that and somebody told me this once and it meant the world to me, so I hope it means the same to you. I'm getting DMs because of you.
What do you mean?
I'm getting people DMing me because you're in my content.
Oh.
And Brad Lee told me this too when he mentioned me in his story. People love you.
Thank you.
People love you, dude.
I appreciate that.
I've probably taken 6 DMs today since you collabed with me on a thing where you were talking about hanging out here with Jay and I. And people are like, oh yeah, I work with Dr. Sean, or oh, I follow Dr. Sean, or I had one guy who you actually know that works with me in JWX. Maybe not know, but you met him once at an event that you spoke at, something or other. And he started with JWX about a month ago.
Okay.
And he said to me, just knowing, he said, I met Dr. Sean at an event briefly, and then I met him in the airport. His name's Matt Elric. He's from New York.
Okay.
He said, just seeing you around guys like Jay and Sean, but he was being specific to you, says that I'm in the right group.
That's cool.
Just so you know that, yeah. So like I'm getting that and I'm seeing that, and I want you to know that because I know when somebody told me that, when Brad Lee told me that he was like, dude, you have a cult following. People love you. He's like, normally when I mention somebody, it's people talking shit, right? And that meant the world to me because like people are talking really good things about you to somebody that they don't even know. Or could, quite frankly, be intimidated by.
Right. Well, I appreciate you saying that because that is something I've worked really hard on.
Reputation.
Reputation, and really just giving people the clarity that I care about them by genuinely listening and taking their feedback and trying to improve in ways that I agree I need to improve. That's been the greatest value of social media. It's not business building for me so far. It's somebody tells me something and I'm like, you know what? That is a better way for me to think about that. And I love to get corrected by people who have the audacity to come and tell me like, hey, I think you could have done this better, especially when it's in the DM. When you come in the comment section like a prick, I'm not interested in that. But when you send me a DM and you share with me like, hey, I saw this post. I understand why you're saying this, but I think this. I love that. And I think that I had a guy the other day who actually was in the comment section. He was like, I've never had an interaction like this before. I'm like, well, I'm not like most people. I appreciate you coming here and saying what you had to say. So it's been a lot of work on that because I'm used to just coming out like a cat in a cage.
That's that Napoleon syndrome you had from high school.
Well, you know what's from before high school? So I'll share the story with you because this will give you more insight to like my relationship with my dad. 7th grade, I thought I was super cool. Right? I was good at baseball. I was wrestling. I'm awesome. Let's be honest. I'm awesome. But I was also wrestling 103 pounds. So not big. And I remember one day, I'm in the pizza place on the way home from school. And this girl's like, Anthony wants to beat the crap out of you. I'm like, Anthony who? And she's like, Anthony. She tells me his last name in case, I don't want to out him. Anthony was like 200 pounds in 8th grade. I'm like,
he was my size.
Yeah, in 8th grade. And I'm like, he has kids my size. Why does he want to beat me up? She's like, I don't know, but he wants to beat you up. I'm like, okay. So instead of going back to school for the second half of the day, I went home. It was lunchtime. So instead of going back to the second half, I went home. My mom tells my dad he came home early, thinks something's up. My dad comes in, finds out what's going on. And he's like, okay, here's what you're going to do. He goes, tomorrow, when you go into school, you're going to challenge Anthony to a fight in front of everybody. I was like, Dad, Anthony's 200 pounds. Like, he's literally 2 of me. He's got facial hair. I don't even have a pube yet. I didn't say that, but you understand. And my dad's like, yeah. And so either Anthony's going to beat you up in front of everybody or you're going to hurt him. But either way, everybody is going to know if they want to pick on Sean Pastuch, they have to go all the way through with it. They got to be ready to go all the way through with it. I was like, okay. I was more concerned about disappointing my dad than I was about getting beat up by Anthony in front of everybody. So the next day, I go into school. First thing in the morning, I'm like, I'm not waiting on this. I go find Anthony. I'm like, hey, I hear you want to beat me up. And he's like, just looks at me. I'm like, fuck, I'm about to get hit so hard. And then he puts his arm around me and he goes, we're cool. And my first thought was, no, we're not. Like, no, we're not.
You're out talking shit.
Yeah, like I felt this way all day yesterday and this morning. I didn't sleep, like, we're not cool. But I wasn't going to be like, no, I didn't actually want to fight him. I just wanted to get it over with. And I held on to that experience for a while and I was like, I'll never let anybody bully me again. And if I see somebody bullying somebody else, I'm going to stand up for them too. And so my entire career up until maybe 2.5 years ago was me standing in front of a perceptive bully on behalf of the person being bullied. And then I realized the person who I think is being bullied doesn't need me to stand up in front of them, they need me to stand next to them. And it changed everything.
Wow. It's probably my favorite thing I've heard on this show. Not this specific one, on any of them. So tell me about that pivot.
I went on Dr. Gabrielle Lyons' podcast, and she and I are friends. And after the show, she said, can I give you some advice? I said, yeah, please. She goes, stop thinking about people as bullies and stop thinking about people as victims. She goes, that's going to keep you angry at the bully and like a savior to the victim. And the victim doesn't need you to save them. And the bully doesn't even know they're bullying. Because the bully for me that I was thinking about is like the medical system lets people down all the time. The fitness industry lets people down all the time. The online coaching mentorship space is a dumpster fire of people letting people down all the time. And so instead of me just focusing on what we at Active Life are excellent at, I created stories about people who I never met. And I was like, I have to destroy that person. And so instead of focusing on what we need to focus on to serve our client in the way that they deserve to be served, I was focusing on beating that person who didn't even know we were playing a game against each other, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, I do that all the time. I love that.
I do too. And I'm getting back to finding ways to do it that are productive. I was not doing it productively.
Like I'll literally assume somebody's doing something to succeed that I'm like, I got to do that better than them. Like I'm crazy when it comes to that shit. And I'd never thought about it that way until you just described it that way.
I've worked with some really impressive people. I've been blessed to have the opportunity to work with some really elite athletes. And I've seen the behind the scenes of what it means to be a coach who's working with that athlete and holding their name next to that athlete. Right? So their whole value is I work with this athlete. And I've seen them screw their athlete over for the sake of their personal reputation. And I've seen how much damage that does to the athlete. And I've had to go on 3-hour walks by myself just to cool down about what I'm seeing going on. And that's where my brain goes when I see somebody take advantage of somebody else. And when I see people who are in pain, who are told by their doctor, for example, this is just the best it's going to get. You got to work around it. Like, give up the things you love, just do something else. For a long time, I was like, that doctor is the problem. But the reality is that doctor might not actually know any better. And they're trying the best that they know how to try to help somebody. So I don't need to kill them. I just need to help this person.
Let's talk about pain.
Sure.
Pain and change, really, right? Because that's what a lot of what you do is mindset around pain.
Yeah. So let's start with what is pain.
Yeah.
Okay. Because one of the things, and Jay gave me a nice compliment earlier today, and it was really meaningful. He said, if people's personal skills don't get better when they're around you, they're not paying attention. I was like, that's cool. No one's ever said that to me before, and I really appreciate it because I've worked really hard at it. And when he expanded on why, he was talking about, like, when somebody says something, you ask them questions about what they mean and why they mean that. And that's always been so obvious to me about things like doctors with patients, because I was a doctor treating patients. But it was never obvious to me in life. But so pain, as a for example, the doctor says, if it causes you pain, don't do it. Okay. If I ask 100 people, what is pain? I'm going to get 100 different answers. So now what that means is, if it causes you something that you believe I mean by pain, stop doing it. Without ever asking, what do you think I mean by pain? Do you follow me there?
Yeah. I need a better visual.
Yeah. All right. If it hurts, don't do it. What does hurt mean? Pain means, let's take them synonymously. It is a negative emotional interpretation of a stimulus. That's it. You felt something and you did not like it. Pain. Does that mean that thing is making you worse? No. Could it mean that thing is making you worse? Sure. So we have to put some guardrails on how do you actually know. What happens when we don't put the guardrails on it, give people that control, people end up living in a cage of hypervigilance, afraid to live. Everything that they feel, they're putting through the filter of, is that pain? Is that pain? Should I stop? Should I stop? Should I stop? They give up their sports. They stop surfing. They stop working out. They start saying things like, this is what happens when you get old. All of that. So there's some really simple guideposts for people. And when we teach people this, their pain drops immediately. When you start, rank it on a scale of 1 to 10. How uncomfortable is it? 10 is the worst pain you can imagine. If it's a 10, I'm calling the hospital right now. We're getting in an ambulance and we're going. That's a 10. A 1 is you woke up in the morning feeling great, or you just fell asleep. It's super comfortable in your bed.
Right.
Is it a 5 or less? Or is it more than a 5? If it's a 5 or less, let's keep doing it. Let's consider that irritation, not pain. It's bothersome, but it's not a problem.
So most of the time when a doctor asks you what your pain level is at, it's to determine what treatment is going to be done.
When a doctor's asking you what pain level you're at, it's not actually for that. It's oftentimes so that they can justify the treatment and code for it properly to get reimbursed by insurance. Okay. You started as an 8. Now you're at a 7.2. I can show the insurance company that you're getting better.
Is that right?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. So
it's a little off topic, but it's interesting to know.
We can go on that topic if you want. But that's where that goes.
That might sound like a whole other
So there's 4 really simple rules. The first rule is on a scale of 1 to 10, is it a 5 or less, or is it a 5 or more? If it's a 5 or less, consider it irritation. Irritation drives adaptation. Let's keep going. The second thing is it getting better as you use it or worse as you use it? For a lot of people, it's like, oh, it hurts, but then once I get warmed up, it feels good. Well, then resting isn't your solution. Right? I think it's better as you use it, or if it stays the same and it's less than a 5 out of 10, keep going. The next rule, as soon as you stop doing whatever you were doing, so we were doing pulls today, right? My shoulder hurts a little bit when I pull. 1 to 10, 3. Gets better or worse as you go. Stays the same or gets a little bit better even. Okay, great. As soon as you stop, what do you feel? Nothing. Pain's totally gone. Awesome. We're not doing any permanent damage. If I stabbed you and I pull the knife out, you're like, it still hurts.
Right.
Right? We did damage. And then rule number 4 is tomorrow you're going to wake up. Does it feel like it felt when you were in the workout? Or does it feel totally different? No, it feels totally different. We did no damage. The thing we did yesterday was actually probably good for you,
right,
and going to get you where you want to go. But you've been avoiding it for the last 10 years because somebody told you if it hurts, don't do it. And when you did this, you felt the hurt.
So pain is the story that you're telling yourself.
Yeah. Pain is the negative emotion attached to the feeling that you don't like.
So my history with pain, it was a lot of times the story I told myself or the way that the doctor would package it, right? And that was going to be my next question, is that some people have different pain tolerance, right? Different discernment with like where their pain really is. And then obviously they adapt differently to it. So if you were to ask somebody like me, I've sat through some pain.
Sure.
Right? My whole body's tattooed. I've had my teeth completely redone entirely while I was wide awake and didn't use any medications.
Okay.
Pain to me, like it takes a lot for me to say I'm hurting. Right? But that's in recovery.
Sure.
And in an active addiction, everything hurt. Everything was in pain. When my mindset wasn't where I assume that you try to take clients' mindsets to, that story that I told myself kept the pain cyclical. It kept me in my exact comfort zone, which was a painful place.
Did you feel like you deserved the pain?
It's hard to play a victim mentality and think that you deserve a negative outcome.
Okay. So then I guess a better way to ask that question would be, give me 1 second. I'll get to a good question for you there. Okay. Did you have a lot of certainty about how bad your days were going to be when you were in it?
Yes.
Okay. Did the pain in any way give you like elation about some uncertainty?
Ask that a different way.
When you felt pain, did you get a rush out of being like, I don't know where this is going to go?
I gotta jog.
Yeah.
I gotta jog back a little bit. That's
back
really specific.
Yeah.
That's hard to discern if that was pain or like laziness.
Sure. So the reason I asked that question, I've never been addicted to a substance. I can't relate in a way that gives me life experience I can speak from. Pain is amplified by uncertainty. So
Okay, let me stop you there, because that makes me think, because when I was at my lowest point in terms of pain, in terms of what was happening in my life and the way that I was self-sabotaging, I became a severe hypochondriac.
Was that for attention?
No.
Okay.
Fuck no.
You didn't want anyone to know.
I didn't want anybody to know.
Right.
Bro, I've convinced myself of some wild shit.
I believe that.
Wild shit. for years
Okay.
of like crazy stuff that I convinced myself that I was suffering from.
Okay.
One thing in particular was a doctor that was prescribing me a lot of Norcos and a lot of painkillers. He wanted to continue to feed me those because he's probably going to send them on a cruise. But he wanted to help treat me too as a family doctor. So he gave me a drug called Wellbutrin. Okay. And Wellbutrin was to treat pain, anxiety, depression. And then there's another component to Wellbutrin. It's also supposed to treat tobacco use.
Interesting.
And it's supposed to make you hate the taste of cigarettes. Now, back then, I used to smoke 2 packs a day.
It's a lot of cigarettes.
It's a lot of cigarettes. And thankfully, I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I smoke a lot of cigars, but no cigarettes. And one day I was, this is when I was in college. And I was, we got let out on break, leave the lecture hall. Normally I'd go up, smoke a cigarette. Now, Wellbutrin doesn't get you high. So I took it as prescribed. So it worked.
Right.
But it didn't work for why I was using it. It worked for the other thing, the cigarettes. So I went out to the mall walk and went to have a cigarette outside of my lecture hall. And I was like, oh, this is freaking terrible. Pitched the cigarette, try to light another one. Like something's wrong. Right? What I enjoyed so much, I don't even enjoy anymore. Meanwhile, I have no clue that that's the drug doing that to me.
Interesting.
So I go downstairs, back to the lecture hall was downstairs. I go downstairs to the lecture hall. Open up my laptop. I WebMD, the WebMD.
Yeah, I remember that. Oh, yeah. Everything's cancer.
Everything's, or worse.
Yeah.
It was, so I typed in sudden distaste for nicotine or cigarettes. Hepatitis.
Oh, so you thought you had hepatitis.
And keep in mind, I'm the only freshman, junior at the time in college with a sleeve of tattoos. So in my eyes, I'm like, my dad was right. I should have never gotten tattoos. I fucking picked something up from one of them. I'm dying. And it, right away, it went off in my head. And I was like, straight up, like, I was convinced that I was like, whatever, type B or, you know what I mean? Or whatever. Like, I was convinced that it was done for me. And no one could ever know.
Well, what you're speaking to right now is exactly what amplifies pain. And that's uncertainty.
Right.
You didn't have physical pain, but you had mental anguish all around like, am I going to die from hepatitis because I got a sleeve of tattoos? That's where your brain went. So when you were talking about people having different pain tolerances, that's mostly, there's some nervous system sensitivity stuff that goes with that too, but it's mostly an experience thing. So what that means is, if you played pro football and somebody else never played sports in their life and you both, trip and fall on the sidewalk at the same time, you're not going to have the same experience with that trip. It's you played pro football, you've been knocked down before. That guy hasn't. His knee is bleeding. He's like, oh my God, am I going to bleed out? And you're like, no, let's dust it off and let's walk.
Right.
So uncertainty amplifies pain.
Yeah. And so the problem is it got progressively worse because I refused to get certainty. I just went with my assumption.
Of course. Well, because you didn't want to ask people about it.
It was embarrassing. It was 100%. Where do you go from here?
So this is, This is why people stay in pain for so long, because they're surrounded by people who are palliated by knowing that they're surrounded by people who are also in pain. There's nothing wrong with me. This is what happens when you get older. It's much easier to believe than I could fix this, but it's going to be really hard. So one, you have to look in. The other one, you get to look out and say, yeah, it's all of us. And that is such a key thing for people to understand when they're in pain or when they're working with somebody who is in pain, is that providing them the certainty gives them the choice. And once they have the choice, you have to let them make it. So somebody who's in pain has to say, I'm in pain. I understand now that I don't have to be. And I don't want to be, and I'm ready to do the work. Or I understand that I'm in pain. I don't believe that I don't have to be. And so kick rocks. Never try to convince that person. They're not ready. But the person who says, if you're telling me there's a way out of this, I want it, that's the person I want to help.
I have two questions. The first one, and then I want to circle back. When do you introduce accountability?
You're describing it, the way you describe it in that question is, let me start my answer differently. From the very beginning, without ever telling them that there's accountability being placed on them. And so
Wait, hold on. Repeat that.
From the very beginning, without ever telling them that there's accountability being placed upon them.
Okay.
So oftentimes, what I find oftentimes is that there's a friction in a relationship and in a coaching mentorship situation where if I have to tell you that you're wrong in any way, shape, or form, you might decide it's more important that you're right than that you get well. And so you might resist me because I'm the one who told you that you're wrong. Mm-hmm. And I can, like, in the accountability case, I can say, hey, this is on you. You can fix all of this. And they might say, I don't believe that. Well, I can now fight with them over that, right? Or I can find a different way to have that conversation from the very beginning.
Warren Buffett had the guy smoking the cigarette inside the office space.
Okay.
Do you know this story?
No.
You've read How to Win Friends and Influence People.
I haven't read.
Oh, no. So Warren Buffett had a guy that wouldn't stop smoking cigarettes inside. Mm-hmm. So he brought him outside and he gave him the nicest Cuban cigar ever. Mm-hmm. And lit it up and never even had to tell him don't smoke cigarettes inside anymore. Mm-hmm. The guy never smoked a cigarette inside again.
That's right. It's what you're describing there is the friction that he chose not to create. Mm-hmm. It was, I want this to be your decision. I'm smoking this, in that case, I'm smoking this cigar with you outside because I obviously value the outside more than the convenience of doing this in the office. And that guy wanted to be more like Warren Buffett, I imagine. Mm-hmm. Followed his lead and said, okay, I get it, outside.
I'm pretty sure it was Warren Buffett, but yeah.
Whoever it was, yeah. Outside it is. When it comes to people who are in pain, it's really important to give them the credit that they're trying their best. And they're doing everything that they can with what they know. And so if we come out and say, you've been doing it wrong the whole time, they're like, fuck you. You don't know what I've been feeling. Mm-hmm. You don't know what I've tried. You don't know what's failed. And they're right. So if instead we can come in and just ask a question like, can you imagine what a day would look like if you didn't have pain? And then they'll say something, oftentimes they stop and they're like, no. Okay. Well, you're pretty successful in your business, right? Yeah. Okay. Can you imagine what success looks like in your business? Can you imagine where you're going to get your next client from? Can you imagine what your next marketing campaign is going to look like? Yeah, all of it, of course. So you have a target that you're aiming for? Yeah, of course. I need you to be able to see what a day without pain would look like so that we can aim for it. What would you do differently if you woke up in the morning and instead of having the pain that you have, you don't? What is something that you would do that you don't do right now? If they can't think of something, okay, what is something that you would stop doing that you'd rather not do, but the pain causes you to do it every day? Oh, I wake up in the morning and I have to stand up and like lean all different directions to my back and feel better just before I even go to the bathroom. So you'd like to not have to do that? No, I would love to not have to do that. Okay. Would you try tomorrow to just skip that and see what happens? And then there's some fear there because they have uncertainty, which amplifies the pain. And so the question becomes, okay, well, what are you afraid of? Why are you pausing on that? What's the worst case scenario of you doing that or not doing that? I don't know. Would you be able to do it like 5 minutes later and have the same day? Yes. Can we try it tomorrow? Sure. And then they try, and then you get the text, dude, I was able to like go to the bathroom without back. I'm like, that's amazing. In that moment, I can say, I told you so. Or I can say, that's amazing. What a great start. And now that person is wide open to a bunch of other things. And the accountability of all of that is reminding them you did that. You made that progress.
Right.
Which means you're capable of continuing to make that progress. I'm very proud of you. That's awesome.
So reframe. But my other question too is that if you have somebody that you ask those questions or you reframe the questions to, don't you feel, or at least I do, that most people would be pretty glaring? Like, just by asking the right questions, they should be able to lock into like where they're at in their mindset. And
you would think, but it's one thing to be able to.
I assume everyone's as self-aware as you and me.
It goes beyond that, because I can share my pain story with you. I was oblivious to my own problem for 6 years. I pile drive myself by accident doing handstand push-ups in a CrossFit gym, because that's what you do, right? Don't come at me, CrossFitters. I'm not saying CrossFit's dangerous. I'm saying I failed on a handstand push-up and came down on my head and herniated discs on my neck. So I run a company, helps people get out of pain without going to the doctor, getting with their active life. I train coaches on how to do the same thing. That's really our primary offer. Build a business helping people get out of pain and get back to their active life. And here I was with excruciating neck pain that shot into my shoulders. I'm walking home from, and I've had it for 6 years. I'm walking home from a block party. And by the way, I've tried to get rid of it on my own. Walking home from a block party, and my daughter, who's 5 years old, turns to me and says, "Daddy, can I sit on your shoulders?" Like this cute little 5-year-old voice. And I was like, "I'm sorry, honey, Daddy's tired." Which wasn't true. I lied to her and violated the one rule I have with me and my kids, which is that I'm never tired for them. I'm never too tired for them. They want to play. There's going to be a day they don't want to play anymore. So I'm not too tired. Get up, play with the kids. I told her I was too tired. So I lied, violated my value. It was all because I had neck pain. I hated myself in the moment for doing that. And that was enough for me to hire someone on our own team. And I was like, I need you to help me solve for this so that I never have to say no again. I've had doctors tell me that I have degenerated and herniated discs that are never going to get better. Like, this is the peak. And so enjoy it because it's only going to get worse. And I was like, no, like I'm going to be the dad who puts his kids on his shoulders at their wedding. And so I hired a staff member, and I didn't have the awareness about the ways I wasn't being conscious. And he brought it to me. 6-7 months later, my daughters were on my shoulders, and I just traveled Spain with a kid on my shoulders almost every minute of the day.
I noticed that. And actually, that was the visual that I got, was some of the footage that I saw of your trip in Spain. That's funny.
But so I share that with you because it's like, yeah, I have self-awareness. But when you're in it, it's hard to see it unless somebody else asks you the question that allows you to.
But that was a time where that pain, the pain of not being able to put your daughter and lying to her and breaking that trust, that pain was far greater than the pain you were having in your neck.
Yes.
Right. That's when change occurs, right?
Yep. We don't run towards pleasure, we run away from pain.
Right.
No matter how people want to slice that up. It's like, no, I have, my biggest fear is failing to live up to the potential I believe I have. That's my number one fear. Like, I have nightmares. I had a recurring nightmare until I shared it with somebody, actually.
Failing to live up to the potential I believe I have. Oh, right, okay. I thought you said something different. No, that's why I had to stop myself.
I had a recurring nightmare. I was waking up in sweats in the middle of the night, almost every night. That my daughter was in like her 50s or 60s. She was successful, and she was continuing to push. And reporters were asking my daughter, "Why do you keep working so hard? Why do you keep pushing?" And she had sacrificed everything in her life for this. Like, she didn't have the family that she wanted. She wasn't happy, but she was pushing. And they asked her, "Why are you pushing so hard?" And she's like, "I watched my dad try and never make it.
Oh.
And so now I have to." that was a recurring nightmare for me until I faced it. And so the pain that you're describing that was emotional pain, but it felt just as real as my neck. And all of these things, like I am successful objectively now. And I don't feel like it because I still have so much more that I want to do. And I believe I'm going to do it. But I'm not chasing the success. I'm terrified of the mediocrity.
That's what hyper successful people are, though. We're not enough.
I don't feel like I am.
No.
I want to be. I really do.
Yeah, no, I struggle. I put something out the other day that I was saying, like, I still struggle with self-worth issues, and I believe I always will. Mm-hmm. You know, I always want to level up, or I don't feel like I'm doing good enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the whole, like, I was talking to you earlier about the book thing, right? Mm-hmm. So I haven't talked about this in any podcast, so you're getting the scoop, Justin.
Yes.
I have a book I'm going to write, and I wrote the proposal. I worked with an agent and a proposal writer, and we sent it out to every major publisher in the country. All of them said they're not interested. One book company offered me a deal, but I don't feel confident that they feel confident, and so I won't sign the deal. And
can you discuss, like, where the lack of confidence is?
That they're describing?
Yeah.
Yeah, the way the book deals are structured, at least this book deal, was we're going to give you this advance. And part of getting this advance is you have to also commit to buying this many books that you're going to distribute. Now, when you sell those books, you keep all of the money. You don't get any of it. Or you can give them away, whatever you want, but you have to buy this many books. And when I did the math, me buying those books covered the advance.
It was a wash.
And then some. And I'm like, do you guys not have faith these books are going to sell?
Yeah.
That was my concern. So all of that to get back to the bully story from earlier, I'm like, I'm good enough for this book. This book is necessary. People need this book. This book is going to change people's lives. And you don't see it. And for a minute, there was a little bit of the self-doubt and the I don't even know what the word would be, but I wanted the validation from somebody else, and I didn't get it. Mm-hmm. And it was like, it sent me back to that I have to kill you now mindset. And I like that, but I also don't want to live there all the time. It's a dangerous place for me to be. Mm-hmm. So the feeling of enoughness in part is for me, and in part is how are the people who need that book going to get what's in it if you don't help me get it out to them?
Yeah, definitely. And that feeling of enoughness mm-hmm. In terms of what we're discussing is just going to really come in terms of monetary compensation, right? And just the deal that they work out with you and the excitement behind it.
This might sound ridiculous, but I didn't even really think about the monetary compensation. Just like, I want to sell 1 million of these. Yeah,
right. But when you're talking, and this is my understanding with publishers too, is like their excitement shows in advance.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
And in terms, mm-hmm. right? Like their level of interest is definitely reflected in how, and this is just what I understand. I could be wrong. There could be,
I feel the same
publishers
way.
That are right here, but I would tell you that typically when you're talking about deals, it's put your money where your mouth is.
Yes.
And if the terms are a wash for mm-hmm. you,
right,
then there's no excitement. There's no risk. There's no skin in the game from them. Mm-hmm. So it's like, where's the belief? So I could see where you would feel.
Right. And for a moment, I was in this again. I had to prove myself again. Mm-hmm. And then.
But you're a first-time author.
Yeah.
So you have to.
I sat back and I was like, well, if you were trying to play pro baseball and the manager was like, you throw 83 and we need you to throw 90, you can have the choice of saying, I think 83 is good enough and you should accept it. Or go learn to throw 90. And when you get there and they want to offer you a contract, rake them over the fucking coals.
Right.
That's where I am.
Exactly. That's fucking cool, dude. That's a really good place to find yourself, though. That's self-awareness.
Yeah, that's the growth, right? That's
Yeah.
instead of me just spiraling and being like, I hate everyone who's gotten a book deal now.
But I guess my question is, do you take the deal?
No.
No.
Wait, which deal? The one I got offered now?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I thought about it. And if I were to take the deal as it's written right now, the only reason I would be doing it is because I don't believe I can do this myself, and I believe I need their help.
Can you do it yourself?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know that if I decided to, I'd figure it out.
It's a wild world to try to do yourself.
Yeah, well, listen, I had one publisher who asked me on a call, they were telling me how they were concerned about my audience size. I was like, okay.
In terms of what?
Instagram following, email list.
That's it?
Basically.
Okay.
Right? So I was like, well, let's just pretend I had 1 million people on an email list and 1 million people following my Instagram. Why would I share my profits with you?
Yeah.
I don't need their help.
Right.
But look, I'm learning that game. And at the end of the day, I'm enjoying that, like, there's a little bit of dust back on my shoulder that could be a chip. I just won't let it become a boulder. I used to walk around like this way because I had a boulder on my shoulder that,
Yeah.
I had to keep.
Have you made a decision?
About what?
Like a full decision on which way you're going to go?
With the book?
Yeah.
I'm not going to take that offer.
Well, I know that. Are you going to try to go at it?
I have not made that decision yet. Because my thought process right now is, like I said, learn to throw 90. Build the audience that they would want to buy the book for, and then decide if I want to work with them or do it myself.
You'll get more offers.
Right. And I can decide if I want to partner with them or if I want to do it alone.
Well, the good news is that it's not like you're a starving artist.
No, that's correct.
So.
Which is also a weakness, by the way.
Oh, well, yeah, in terms of the boats not being burnt and all of that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so then you're like the hobby artist,
right?
Who it's a passion project that never turns into anything.
Right. The way I burned those boats, I took myself out of every single job in the company. And like I said, we traveled to Spain and France. And when I came back, I didn't have a place doing the things I used to do. And so I don't want to go back in there and sabotage it. Let them keep doing a job. The company does a great job. The team does a great job. So now I'm committed to writing this book. Mm-hmm. I'm committed to building this audience. How? I don't know. We'll get there.
Interesting. Another conversation I had with Brad. He said, this was before I was working, because I'm done. My book's done. It's headed into publishing.
Okay.
I took a shitty deal.
It happens.
Like they made out better than me.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't care.
Right.
Brad had this conversation was, why don't you have a book? You know how he talks.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't know, man. I have a podcast. He's like, that's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to have a book. And I was like, okay. And he gave me his. And I was like, this is a fucking pamphlet. Remember in Curb Your Enthusiasm when Jason Alexander, do you ever watch
I love
Curb? He's like, when he releases his book, Acting Without Acting.
Yeah.
Remember, he's like, this is a pamphlet.
Yes.
And Brad hands it. I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, this is a pamphlet. And it's like wobbly.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, yeah, but I got a book.
Right.
Every personal brand needs a book.
Yeah.
Right?
I have that book. I wrote that book.
Okay.
I published that book.
Okay.
Amazon.
I didn't realize that. Yeah. Okay.
Self-publishing. And really, I mean, listen, for the title of that book was Turn Pro, The Fitness Professional's Guide to Ethical Sales and Career Fulfillment.
Okay.
And it's a book that's completely about ethical sales for the fitness professional. I own the trademark, ethical sales.
Yeah. Nobody must have read it.
Huh?
I'm kidding.
Yeah. Touche. I think it has 8 reviews on Amazon. But I didn't write it to sell it. I wrote it to put it on Amazon for $25 and give it away as a lead magnet. No, as a lead magnet. I was like $25 on Amazon, or you can get it for free. Just join our email list. And that book turned into millions of dollars of new clients.
Really?
Yes. And some of the coolest stories I've ever gotten are from people who read that book and used it, to build a career. But that's the book I want to write will do much more than that. It's Live More, Hurt Less will be the title. At least that's what I think the title will be. And it will be the thing that helps people overcome their chronic pain to get back to the life that they love. You
wrote something the other day on a post that was basically saying that the reason you train is so that you never, and now that you tell me the story about your daughter and your neck, it makes a lot of sense. But that hit me really deep on more levels than just physical pain, right?
Well, again, pain isn't purely physical.
Yeah, and right. No, I understand. I'm just saying, like this was prior to this conversation that I immediately sourced it to the pain that I was causing myself, my own self-sabotage, my own addiction, the polluting that I was doing to my body and brain and everything like that, to where it's like, you have to have something. You have to have something physical in your life to make you strong.
Yeah.
And because you're not getting any younger, right? And although I do think that people are resorting to like the age excuse way younger nowadays, right? Man, I'm in my 30s. Like, dog, I'm almost 40 and you've seen me lift. And I don't have any pain when I lift, right? Like people are saying, oh man, I'm getting older. You're fucking not.
Right.
You're not getting older. Oh, my metabolism has slowed down in my age. No, it hasn't. Scientifically, no, it hasn't.
Well, the thing, this is the accountability that we're talking about, right?
Right.
So here's how I like to approach that. Doesn't mean it's the right way. It's how I like to do it. Your metabolism slowing down? Yeah. Okay. Would you like to speed it up if you could?
Oh, yeah.
Great. Then let's do that. Let's start working out. Right? And it's like, that's going to speed up it's going to speed up your metabolism. I don't care if they think it's slowing down or if they're using the excuse that this is what my body's breaking down.
Right. Because to tell somebody that your metabolism's not slowing down, it's scientifically proven, blah, 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 is basically like when they say like, when people would ask, was it Jimmy Hoffa? When they'd be like, you're a bad person. And he'd be like, the hell I am.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you start condemning and criticizing somebody's point of view, then they tend to retreat.
Yes. Exactly.
But if you offer an alternative suggestion, right? Because we know that your metabolism doesn't slow down, but we do know also that your metabolism does speed up.
Of course. And I get this with coaches all the time. They'll be like, what you're talking about is not going to work where I live. I'm like, okay.
Bullshit.
Sure. But I can say, yes, it will. Or I can say, are you committed to being a coach? Yes. Okay. If it's not going to work where you live, are you ready to move? No. Okay. Well, if you're committed to being a coach and you're not ready to move, are you open to trying something to see if there's a person in your town that you didn't know existed? I guess I'll try anything. Great. Let's try this then. That's the same as, of course it's going to work in your town.
Right.
Right? Like, you were a car guy. One of the things I love to say to our students is, if you walked into a Mercedes dealership and they were like, we have this top of the line Mercedes for $250,000, and this one is exactly the same car, same exact car, looks the same engine, same everything, and it's $15,000. What would you think?
What's wrong with it?
What's wrong with it? Well, why do you think people aren't buying your training when you're priced like the $15,000 Mercedes and saying that you're the Maybach?
100%. Yeah.
So there's that. And then I say, and there is a Toyota and a Hyundai dealership on the same street as the Mercedes dealership. Nobody walks into the Hyundai dealership looking for a Mercedes. So you might not be meeting Mercedes buyers because you are positioning yourself as a Hyundai.
Yeah.
And I don't have to tell them you're wrong.
No, 100%. That's exactly right. Yeah. You haven't read Carnegie's book?
No,
I'm like shocked by this because like I'm sitting here trying to be like inquisitive, but I'm like, yeah, duh, like it's perfect, and it's so true.
You know what it is? It was that mentor who really took me under his wing for a while. He really helped me understand that you don't understand somebody else until you can say what they're thinking better than they can. To the point that they say, "Would you say that again?" And if you can say it so well that they're like, "That's what I've been trying to say," and they'll write it down. If you can't do that, you don't know them. And so I just assume at all times, I don't know you well enough to help you. So I need to ask all of the questions until I know you so well that I can help you think for yourself. And in doing that, people really like it. And people are easily influenced. And people want to be my friend. And so I'm making friends and influencing people. And that's the book you're talking about.
You gained a lot of insight from this mentor, but anybody that's watching this that's like, wow, like, that's an interesting perspective and I'm going to take that home and try that out. We need to remind anybody watching this too that like, how many repetitions have you taken in order to master that?
Are we talking about the personal development skill or the technical skill of helping the client?
Either one. And let's go personal development on that end of like reframing, right? Because like no one's going to watch this podcast and go, I heard Dr. Sean say that I could ask a question a different way or make a different style of suggestion or reframe it.
I'll give them the exercise that I went through. And if you can go through that, you can do it.
Oh.
It was brutal.
I'm sure.
I came up with a list of every single person who deserved an apology from me in my life. Every single person for any reason. Starting with my wife, wasn't wearing a wedding ring. It was important to her, but it wasn't important to me. So I didn't wear it, and I just wrote it off as like, she knows I love her. She knows I'm attracted to her. She knows I'm not straying. I don't need to wear a wedding ring. And she would say, yeah, it's okay. But I knew it was really important to her. So I was being selfish in a way that wasn't helpful to us. So I ordered a wedding ring. And when it came in, I made my first apology. And that was to my wife. I said, I apologize because I know how important this is to you. And you're more important to me than anything else. And so I need to express to you and show you every single day that I love you, that I'm proud to be married of you. And I'm going to wear this ring. I'm never going to take it off. And she was like, where the fuck is this coming from? Like, I mean, that was a big deal for her. And I went all the way and I apologized to over 40 people on phone calls, in person, whatever it took. And I ended with the final boss, my ex-business partner, who was also in my wedding party, one of my best friends. And our relationship and our business partnership ended poorly. And I'll spare everyone the gory details because it's not fair to him for me to air them out publicly. I called him. I couldn't think of for years, what did I do wrong? Never even crossed my mind I did something wrong. I thought about all the things. Couldn't think of it. So I called him up. We hadn't talked in, 5 years, 6 years at all. Just saw his number, hoped it would work. I was like, hey man, I just want to let you know that somewhere along the way, I wasn't the friend that you needed, and I wasn't the business partner that you needed. And I apologize for not recognizing it at the time. And he was like, well, it takes balls for you to call me. I appreciate it. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to be your friend, but I appreciate you calling. And I was like, look, I don't really want to be your friend either. But I thought that you should know that I know I had a role in our thing breaking down.
Who suggested this exercise?
That was me. I just realized I had to do it.
That's like a pretty big part of
the 12-step process.
Yeah,
I was learning that afterwards.
That's like one of our hardest steps.
It was really hard.
Yeah.
But I mean, I made a list, and it was stupid stuff. Like I apologized in the beginning. It was stupid stuff. I had to break the ice. Like I apologized to my parents for not telling them I love them often enough, because I do, and they've been so helpful to me. And, it goes up. You call the client who canceled their membership and you're like, fuck you. Like, you don't, that thing, right? And you call them and you're like, I was wrong. You were right to cancel and I wasn't ready to hear the lesson at the time. And I apologize. I just want you to know that. And I climbed that list until I got all the way to the final boss. And so if you don't have to be a substance abuser to have value from that. If you can do that and you can genuinely find the thing that you did that was wrong and express your apologies without the attachment of them saying or doing anything in return, you're onto something.
100%. I believe everybody should work the 12 steps.
I don't know the 12 steps, but I like that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Making a list of all your fears and resentments and all of that stuff's pretty eye-opening too.
I bet.
And then taking a moral inventory at the end of every night is huge.
I wouldn't be shocked if this mentor kind of led me through the 12 steps without me even knowing it's what
I would imagine most guys that have been through that we call it friends of Bill W. If they mentor outside of addiction and substance abuse and alcoholism, a lot of them stick to the 12 steps, because you got to remember the 12 steps were built off of like several religions, organizations, practices, and things like that. There was no denomination, sect, religion attached to it. So it was very much like this guy who was like basically, I think, a corporate exec in Wall Street, 100 plus years ago or whatever, what it was. Like he put this together with another dude that was from all types of different things.
Yeah. What it took for me to be able to go through that, and maybe people can relate to this, maybe they can't. We took a Myers-Briggs test. You know what the Myers-Briggs test is? So this mentor pulls me and my partner at the time in, and he goes, all right, so this is the sweet spot. People who are here have a really easy time talking to and understanding and being understood by other people. My other business partner, who I was with now, not now, but at the time, fell in the sweet spot for almost everything. And he goes, okay, so that's the sweet spot. This, on either side of this line, is where the red flags are if you're going to hire somebody. He goes, this is where you land, Sean, on every single test. It was like sweet spot, boundaries, Sean. Every time. He's like, you are one of the highest potential and unhireable people I've ever met in my entire life. And I remember, I'll never forget, he said to me, he's like, if you can figure out how to be the best version of yourself, the business partner who you're quarreling with now, will come to you like his work dead. And I didn't figure it out when I was with him. Another business partnership squandered. But I believe I have it now. And now, I was talking to you about this at lunch. One of the biggest things I have to resist is I get asked frequently about executive leadership. Like, will you help me lead my team? Because your team is on and in, and your clients are on and in. Like, I don't want to call it religious because it's not like, I'm not a cult leader, but people they feel psychologically safe and inspired to do the work. And that's all I focus on. And I say no all the time because I'm focused on what we're trying to do, which is, for me, bigger than the money I feel like I could bank.
Having an ecosystem and an ethos in an organization that people follow and drink the Kool-Aid, that is you being a cult leader.
Sure. An ethical one.
Yeah.
I
wear a shirt that says cult leader.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I built a motherfucking ethos.
Right.
I built a thing where it was like, but you have to have proof in the pudding and all of that.
Of course.
Right? But to have a level of ethos and ecosystem that is like that, that's the most powerful spot you can be at in an organization.
I feel that way. Mm-hmm. And that's why part of the time I'm like, we should be on a rocket ship, and we're not, and that's my responsibility. And so now that's where I'm focused on the personal brand stuff all over again.
Made a full circle.
Yeah.
This was like my favorite 2 days that we've had in a long time.
I'm happy to be a part of them. And I love doing this stuff, and my wife is like the best person in the world. And she gets left with 4 kids under 10. We have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And when I'm gone, she's running the whole house all by herself. And this stuff is so valuable for me that I consciously leave her to all of that. And it's so valuable to us that she wants me to. So I really appreciate you bringing me out.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. No, definitely. This was fantastic. Guys, if you like what you saw, make sure you click subscribe. Make sure you comment. Make sure you like. We're going to put all of Sean's information down below so you can feel free to follow him, show him a lot of love, give him a follow. And if you're looking to, take advantage of some of his services and things like that, just reach out to him. It's going to be him.
It's me.
He's always on.
He's
true. Always on. Like he responds really fast. And yeah, dude.
Unless I'm in the hang, then the phone's in my pocket.
Yeah. That's good. I'm learning to do better with that. Tune in next time on the Justin Wenzel Podcast, guys. Thank you so much. We're out.